Hello there and welcome. This is Mikhail or Michael speaking. As always, I want to say thank you all who decided to support me financially on Patreon. You can imagine how much your support helps me. Now, before I start the video with Bakhmut, I must say a few things. First of all, here you can see Crimea. Here is Sevastopol. And Ukrainians had conducted a strike here in this area, damaging this fuel depot. As a result of that, no one has been killed or injured, so that's good news. But here is the video of that happening. So that is that. Now there is also bad news coming from Uman. It would seem that as a result of Ukrainian anti-air defense, Russian missile was struck down or perhaps misdirected by the anti-air and hit a civilian building, partially collapsing it and killing 13 people in the process. Perhaps coincidental or even in retaliation, Ukrainians had launched massive artillery strikes in Donetsk, and one of the Ukrainian munitions had struck a bus within high-density populated area, and as a result of that, all 7 people in that bus were killed. Also, please remember that Free Russia channel condemns all violence against human beings. This situation goes to show that no matter the cost and how justified your war is, civilians are going to be the first one to suffer, and suffer the most. Now, with this tragedy in mind, we will move to Bakhmut, where some changes have occurred. First of all, here we can see the old military base. As a result of clashes, Russians were able to gain full control of it as of right now, and captured about this much territory to the northwest of Tchaikovsky Street. What remains is basically this long and weird-shaped high-rise building. As you can see, it overlooks this entire sector, so perhaps Russians will struggle here for some time. Then we go to the south of Tchaikovsky Street, this one right here. Here Russians were able to achieve some success as well. They were able to capture about this much territory in the last 12 hours. As you can see, this sector is full of high-rise buildings and active fighting is happening within the vicinity of this sector. As you can see, Russians had fully reached the Polivaya Street located here. What can become problematic for Russians is the set of this high-rise buildings right here that perfectly overlooks the entire street of Polivaya, thus compromising Russian attacks in this sector. I would assume Russians will not attack head-on, as it would put them into a big disadvantage, and will advance here from Pushkina Street. In fact, as a result of that advance, Russians were able to capture these 3 buildings to the other side of Pushkina Street, and fighting are now happening within this closed sector, where some garages are located. If Russians will be able to advance here swiftly and with success, Ukrainians will have to withdraw from these positions, thus letting Russians occupy at least this portion of the entire high-rise building sectors to the east of the Tchaikovsky Street. I will highlight the entire sector here for you to understand the situation better. Now, technically, the fighting for that sector just started. Russians were only able to take this portion of this sector and this portion of this sector, maybe 5% of the entire area. So I predict heavy clashes and fighting within this area. As you can see, Tchaikovsky Street is a long one, and fighting continues here. Now, it is reported that Russians are gaining more control over the street here. It is unclear exactly where. I would assume their position lay to this side of the street. If we zoom in, we can understand why it's like that. As you can see, this entire sector is open and very inconvenient for Russians to attack towards. If Russians were to pass the street of Tchaikovskого and attack here towards Alpha Bank, or basically it's a church, they would be subjugated to Ukrainian crossfire from here as well as from here. If you look closely, you can see that this big, tall, high-rise building here is in perfect position to defend the flank of this Ukrainian position, thus providing an overall strong point in this sector and also overlooking the entire sector here, not allowing Russians to advance here. So I would assume that neither Russians will attack directly towards this high-rise building sector, final fortress, or they might attack from the recently captured industrial school, flanking the fortress sector, and of course, as you can see, cutting off roads that lead to it. Overall, at this point, Russians have a lot of possibilities in Bakhmut. They're also attacking here from the north. Fighting continues in this sector where Post Office and Olympic School is located. It is important to note that as this fighting happened, Russians are unleashing hell with artillery and aviation raids on Ukrainian forces. So Ukrainian forces within Bakhmut city is under immense stress, but are not retreating and holding their positions strongly. Now, fighting in Khromove, or at least near Khromove, continues, as well as around 00506 road, and Russians had conducted limited ground operations here towards Ivanivsky and in overall Samolyot district area. Some attacks were conducted towards Grigorivka, Orekhovo-Vasilivka along the E40 highway and around Zalishняnsky. Situation in Seversk front continues as follows. Russians had conducted some attacks towards Spirny, Verkhnekamiansky and Bilokharivka, as well as Grigorivka. Fighting in Serebryansky forest continues and along the entire front line. Then we go to the Avdiivka front. Kamianka still stands as Russians expanding their zone of control near Krasnogorivka, fighting towards Novokalinova and Alexandropol. Russians had conducted some limited military operations from Vodyane towards Severne, but without any success. Fighting now happening in the last forced lines near Severne. With the fall of those Ukrainian positions, Severne will fall. And, of course, as Severne falls, Tonenke is next. Situation in Pervomaisky have not changed. However, situation in Nevelsky is a subject of a change. There is a video of a Russian tank advancing towards Nevelsky with Solntsepek or TOC-1 supporting it, bombarding this entire settlement. So, as you can see, Russians had intensified their advances in attempt to capture this settlement. The importance of this settlement cannot be understated, as with the fall of it, Ukrainians will basically lose control over the entire open field right here. They will have no settlements they can use as strong points. So, of course, this is why Nevelsky is being a subject of hard fighting for the last few months. Situation in Marinka remains the same. However, some Russian sources are reporting some relative success here. They are reporting that some of those districts had fallen to the Russians. However, again, time will be the judge of that. Then we go to the Pobeda. Fighting here continues without change, as well as Novomikhailivka. And situation in Vugledar did not seem change whatsoever. I must repeat myself, but the situation is such. Both Russians and Ukrainians are launching small recon group that are battling out in the Dacha area. The fighting for Vugledar itself had not started yet. Russians continue to bomb Vugledar, destroying high-rise buildings. I must say those buildings are Soviet built, so very sturdy, and it takes a lot of effort to take down at least one, but that job is getting done slowly but surely. So this is the end of the video. I hope you liked it. If you did, please consider pushing that like button as well as leaving comments and subscribing if you haven't done that. Also, push that notification bell so it will inform you immediately of a new video. If you feel extra generous, please consider supporting me financially on Patreon. It will help me a lot. As always, humanity calls me to condemn all violence against human beings. Have a great day, and always remember, Russia will be free and great.